Our survival and a safe environment go hand in hand. Hello and welcome. I am Sadhika Tiwari and you are watching Eco India. While our needs have expanded, the places where we live are becoming increasingly more and more vulnerable. Our cities and our homes need to adapt and become more resilient. On today's episode, let's take a look at some of these ideas and examples of how this is being done. One of my favorite things to do on a vacation is to walk for kilometers because I don't really think I can do that in the city where I live. I live in Delhi and usually the air here is polluted, there aren't as many footpaths and I just don't find it safe. But that is just my experience. So let's find out how walkable India's capital is actually.
Getting to the nearest metro station, be it by bike or on foot, is nothing short of running the gauntlet for Victor Day. The software engineer's workplace is 48 kilometers away, and his daily commute across the city throws up challenges from the very beginning.
For almost a good one and a half kilometer stretch here, there's no footpaths and it's very, very difficult to navigate. I mean, walking is a very far stretch, but I think even cycling is very difficult here. The only choice you have is either to be in a car so that you don't get your feet wet, you don't get yourself dirty.
In India's largest city by size and population, pedestrians and cyclists risk injury and worse every day. Over the last 3 decades, the number of vehicles in Delhi has grown exponentially to reach 12 million today. These vehicles jostle for space with pedestrians in densely populated areas and tourist hotspots alike.
We don't understand where people want to go. And it goes from the right, from the left, and from front and behind, and wow. It's very difficult.
Footpaths are a must if you want people to enjoy the experience of shopping. If there are cars in market areas, it is bound to create traffic jams. It's difficult to walk. There is a lot of noise pollution and traffic creates problems for vendor as well because then we have to move to create space for pedestrians.
Yesterday someone almost like drove over my foot. I just like in the last second. Yeah, it's scary.
Over its 1,000-year history, Delhi's transportation arteries evolved to accommodate pedestrians, cyclists, and a handful of horse-drawn carriages. Since the 1980s, the city has largely forgotten about these users. Now much of the city is built to accommodate the ever-growing number of cars. Studies show that 15% of residents who drive cars take up over 90% of the road infrastructure. Professor Geetam Tiwari has been studying why the government has been unable to stem the use of cars on Delhi's roads.
We don't have walking infrastructure in place. So if I have to use a bus and negotiate a very poor quality of pedestrian path, I avoid using a bus. Of course, this is not the only factor. Quality of public transport matters a lot, but to begin with, the first step is towards creating a safe, comfortable and risk-free access strips, which is walking.
Delhi regularly ranks among the cities with the most polluted air globally. Its citizens bear the brunt of this pollution, but they are beginning to build a movement for safer and more inclusive streets. Here in southwest Delhi's Dwarka, this arterial road is full of people on foot instead of getting clogged with vehicles. Residents are here to celebrate Rahagiri Day. It is similar to Reclaim the Streets movements seen across the world. This event is really inclusive. Everyone, including all ages here. It's my first experience and I'm really liking it. This event is an initiative of the NGO Rahagiri Foundation and the Delhi Traffic Police. They hope to give residents a taste of walkable urban living and pedestrian-friendly roads. The NGO also uses feedback and learnings from such events to redesign and rebuild the streets all over Delhi.
we do traffic survey, basically traffic volume survey, origin destination, people when they are where they are coming, and their travel pattern. Also, we look into land use. It's an industrial area, it's a commercial area, it's a mixed use. Are there any urban villages nearby? Because from there, that is the maximum people walk from there.
So far, the foundation has redesigned over 50 kilometers of streets and 50 intersections in the capital. They hope to change how people make most of their shorter trips.
Many intersection has now 0 fatalities and injuries. Few reduced to 50%. The streets has 0 dust pollution now.
However, in a city with over 30 million people and little pedestrian infrastructure, this is a drop in the ocean. And in areas with available pedestrian infrastructure, women's safety continues to be a major stumbling block.
I would not feel safe walking around at night alone or even in the evening, so I would just spend a lot of money on autos or cabs for a very walkable distance.
As Delhi continues to suffer the effects of sky-high air pollution, making the city more walkable could make for a better and less polluted city in the long run. The city has announced plans to make about half of the city walkable by 2041. If the execution keeps pace, this could be a step in the right direction.
Well, this story on walking in Delhi has reminded me of the few days every year when, let alone walking, one can't even drive a car on the streets because they're inundated with water. Many cities in India, especially coastal cities, are prone to flooding. Flooding actually has become a problem worldwide. In Germany too, coastal areas are dealing with rising sea levels. What is this country doing to protect itself?
Wind and sunshine. Perfect conditions for a kite contest in the small German village of Halle-Siel. It lies in the north of the country, on Germany's North Sea coast. But the weather doesn't always play nice. There's a high risk of flooding and storm tides because this region is at the same height as the sea level. And that sea level is rising. By the end of the century, it could have risen by 1 meter, possibly more, depending on how quickly the planet warms. It's a problem for the local area, which depends largely on agriculture and tourism. Markus Haradzim, who manages the local campsite, is concerned. Just in August, the water here was 1 meter higher than it is now. The whole area was flooded. We had to tell all the campers to vacate the site because it would have endangered their equipment and essentially their lives. He can only open the site in the summer months between April and October, because in winter it looks like this. But not everyone here shares his worries. Tourists who come here to relax and enjoy themselves, free from their everyday lives, aren't too bothered. I read that the nearby islands will likely flood in the future. I don't like the sound of that. It would be a shame. I'm probably at an age where I feel it is what it is, if you know what I mean. It won't affect me personally, but everyone else, of course. To many, the danger seems distant and abstract, but that doesn't mean it's not real. All of this is in danger of flooding. The Wadden Sea, the German mudflats. It's a tourist hotspot and a UNESCO World Heritage Site because of its unique geological and ecological features. The tides create rare habitats of sand and mud. They are home to more than 10,000 plant and animal species, like the lugworm that exists exclusively in the mudflats. Some 10 million birds traveling all the way from the Arctic to southern Africa take a stop over here, looking for food. Rising sea levels will likely shrink their habitat and feeding grounds. Ultimately, the sea could submerge the mudflats permanently. And the threat doesn't stop there. If seawater seeps further inland, the salt could poison farmland, making it impossible to grow crops in a region that calls itself Germany's top agricultural producer. To prevent that, local authorities have constructed dikes to keep the seawater at bay. But are they robust enough to withstand rising sea levels? At Hafen City University in Hamburg, researchers have developed a digital map to investigate the situation. This is how the coastline could look by the end of the century in 76 years. The parts in red show what would be flooded. Without the dikes, the region would look like this.
We were genuinely impressed by how good the dikes would perform 76 years from now. That was the case for everyone involved in that research. Also, seeing the area that would be impacted if the dikes would not be there was also kind of shocking.
Councils are making extra sure the dikes hold, like here in Halle-Siel. Every 10 years, Edda Held and her team calculate how high they need to be, based on the predicted sea level 100 years from now. This one needs work. Of course, we are protecting an entire region by raising this dike. If it was too low, or if it were to break somewhere, then not only the villages directly behind it would be affected, but the whole region of East Frisia, because the water spreads far and wide. These dikes protect the homes of more than 1 million people living near the coast in the German state of Lower Saxony. However, there's a limit to how often the dikes can be raised. It's expensive, and if they get too high, the ground beneath them can weaken. In the long run, scientists say living in these coastal areas might become difficult. But the people here will likely be safe until the end of the century. Still, campsite manager Harazim understands what they are up against. He has witnessed the sea's extraordinary power. We, the people who live here, we have a great deal of respect for the sea, because we know that it will rise. All the forecasts support it. We're not afraid of it, but we certainly have respect. It's always wet here. These puddles are a quiet reminder of it. But Harazim walks on, hoping the waters won't claim his campsite anytime soon.
Let's come back to India and head a little southwards to meet fishers who also are trying to save their coastal town from floods. And their biggest ally? Mangroves. After these forests have suffered almost a 40% decline in India, according to the Indian Institute of Science, they are now making a comeback in this part of Tamil Nadu with more than just one benefit. Here on the shores of Thanjavur in Tamil Nadu, local fishermen are planting mangrove saplings, cultivated to protect their coast. What makes this restoration project special is that the bags used to grow the seedlings are made of natural palmyra leaves, an eco-friendly alternative to plastic.
If we plant 100,000 trees, then we also throw away 100,000 plastic bags. So we need to ask ourselves, is this conservation or are we just adding to plastic pollution?
This is Dr. Balaji Vedarajan. He's a marine biologist and the founder of Organization for Marine Conservation, Awareness and Research. It's popularly known as the Omkar Foundation. His team works on protecting the ecosystem of the Pork Bay, located between India's southeast coast and Sri Lanka. Since 2014, they have been restoring the region's mangrove forests.
Natural mangroves are vanishing from places that are seeing rapid urbanization and industrial development along the coast. On the other hand, they are also vulnerable to sea level rise and coastal disasters. The latter is due to climate change.
The first step in restoration efforts is to determine the site and method of plantation before the rains start at the end of summer. The Omkar team collaborates with the State Forest Department and local fishermen to ensure that everyone in the community understands the planned changes to the existing landscape.
We held numerous meetings to lay out our plans and raise awareness about the impacts of the climate change and how it's affecting our lives today. For example, the intensity and frequency of cyclone is increasing. When we explained all this, they understood the urgency of the situation.
In the second step of the project, Satya, the field coordinator at Omkar, goes door to door to personally meet with local residents who will be a key part of the reforestation. They are the ones who make the biodegradable bags from palmyra leaves. These are used to grow mangrove seedlings in the nurseries.
This is the dried leaf. We first cut them to this size, then we fold them into smaller bundles like this. This process takes a whole day before we can even begin weaving the baskets.
Currently, 12 local families produce the bags. They earn 15 rupees per piece. For most, it's a welcome side job, but some elderly residents, like Sobhagyam, depend on the income to sustain themselves. To help such families, Omkar wants to ensure that the region's Palmyra economy continues to grow. This year, they have purchased more than 3,000 leaf bags for the mangrove nursery.
Coastal communities are most affected by climate change. They are the victims of someone else's crime, so they deserve to be compensated. You don't need to give them money as compensation. Instead, you can include them in the efforts we take to balance the injustice and the harm we have caused the earth. The 15 rupees they earn with each bag works as an incentive for them to take part.
The bags have to be ready in time for the monsoon. They are packed with clay soil dug out from the delta region and then brought to nurseries located at sites that regularly get inundated during high tides. This is where the seeds are planted and left to grow through the monsoon rains.
So when we looked into the root system of the mangroves, which was planted in the Palmyra bags, the root had spread evenly across the entire Palmyra bag, whereas in plastic bags, the roots had coiled at the bottom of the plastic bags. What we found out was it was due to limited aeration and water seepage. But whereas in Palmyra bags, as the water seepage was excellent, the roots held the soil very much firmly.
By the end of monsoon season, the seeds have turned into saplings and are ready to be transplanted. They are loaded onto a boat and ferried to a 20-hectare parcel of the coast in nearby Adirampattinam. Local fishermen working with Omkar have prepared the ground ahead of their arrival. Over the years, the land turned saline and barren. The fishermen have diverted water to the site by digging channels in a fishbone pattern.
Palmyra bags, it negates the destruction of the root structure because we do not remove these bags. Over a period of few weeks, it gets totally degraded and mixes with the soil, which also avoids the plastic pollution.
To date, the project has cost around 23,000 euros. Some 15,000 saplings are planted each year.
There's a lot of focus on industrial development, but at the same time, we need to understand the importance of natural resources that protect us from disasters and support life. We need to pool our efforts to protect habitats like mangroves to save our coastal regions.
This region, at least, has benefited from the use of Palmyra bags in mangrove restoration, a grassroots initiative that's boosted both the local ecology and the economy.
Let's now move a little northwest in Tamil Nadu to touch on yet another issue that impacts the food on our plates. According to a United Nations report, only 9 plant species account for 66% of total crop production. The practice of growing only one, usually commercially viable crop across the farm is on the rise world over. And this is also a challenge to our food security. But what makes it harmful and why should it change?
These serene-looking farms are taking over Tamil Nadu. It's called monoculture and is an efficient way to produce large amounts of a single crop. But it can be terrible in many other ways. It needs fertilizer that's expensive and also depletes soil quality severely. Single crops don't support a wide variety of insects and need even more fertilizers. And these are risky as the climate changes. If the crop fails, everything is lost. But don't lose hope. There are the small and medium scale farmers trying to flip this on its head. A different approach is showing great results on many of those fronts. Meet Shanmuga Sundaram from Erode. I've been doing this farming for over 30 years now. I often try new things to look to discover some new ideas in agriculture. My latest experiment is this plantain forest. Shanmuga Sundaram stumbled upon a method called integrated farming. It means that he now has goats, chicken, cows, fish, and a wide variety of crops that now work as pieces in a jigsaw puzzle. It all started when Shanmuga Sundaram's plantain leaves got sick. He had heard that some fish have a superpower the plants needed. Fish feces is known as sludge and can be used for plantain farming. I tried it and it gave me a good result, so I thought of using fish feces as fertilizer. This is how I started smart integrated farming, which didn't only help my plantain farming, but also all the other crops that I started to grow. All the pieces of the farm are held together by fish waste at the center of the puzzle. There are 6 tanks on the farm, some for the fish and some for the ammonia-heavy waste. This water is treated and sent into the soil. Above the fish are ducks and chickens whose waste feeds the fish. Shanmuga Sundaram found that far from depleting soil, like monoculture farms do, this kind of farming improved soil quality. And this was confirmed by studies on integrated farming. Earlier, the carbon content would be only around 0.4%, but now it has improved to 2.5%. Earlier, our yield was around 10 to 12 kilograms, but it is around 15 to 20 kilograms. So we can literally witness the progress in soil fertility, and the results are spectacular. Employees on this farm work to use all parts of the plantain tree in an effort to reduce farm waste and increase profit. They make and sell laddus, cookies, chips, and brownies from various parts of the plant. Studies across India show that integrated farming is one of the best ways to stay resilient as the climate changes. Farmers are less reliant on external inputs like chemical fertilizers, since so much is recycled on the farm. Multiple and diverse crops reduce the risk of failure. They also support insects and biodiversity, and they have higher yields. Best of all, when carbon content in the soil goes up, carbon in the atmosphere goes down. Many like Rahul from Pudakotai, who also gets inputs from Shanmuga Sundaram, are joining the trend. He started integrated farming in 2023, and he has noticed another benefit. We have guava, fig, amla, coconut, and 7 acres of groundnut. So by doing integrated farming, I'm earning from crops, and also there is an additional income from fish culture too. Unlike crop rotation, in which I was earning only once in a year, this helps me to earn monthly and on a regular basis. Integrated farming in India can and has raised the profitability of small farms by almost 3 times. And such numbers make Rahul optimistic about the future, and he says he's already seeing effects. It's been 8 months since we started integrated farming. Before that, we were using a bow well motor to pump underground water. That gave us some results. In integrated farming, we use water that itself is an enriched biomanure. So we can see the drastic difference in the result from 8 months ago until now. But there are real challenges to integrated farming. Building the shed, tanks, and system can be expensive upfront, especially for small or medium-scale farmers. And seeking veterinary services for the farm animals can add to it. Since it's a new approach, there is also a lack of knowledge and skill sharing between farmers, as well as a fear of change from old systems that are better known and supported by governments. But those who have started this method do see potential and hope that others get on board too. If this method reaches every single farmer, then agriculture would be completely organic. All the fruits, vegetables, and meat that we produce are healthy for all of us. In my opinion, integrated farming can help in building a healthy life for our future generation.
ஆரோக்கியமான மனித சமுதாயத்தை உருவாக்கலாம் அப்படிங்கிறது என்னோட கருத்து.
86% of farmers in India are small or mid-scale. With the right support, access to finance and skills, there is a scope for such farming to benefit farmers and the environment.
Today's episode showed us how constructive actions can really make a difference and actually help secure our future. Do let us know what would you like to see more of on our show. You can email us or reach out to me directly on my social media handles. I will see you next week. Until then, take care. Goodbye. Namaskar.